Once upon a time, on a dark and stormy night, a young girl was trying to write a speech. But she had not yet even typed her first sentence when Grammarly advised her to remove the phrases once upon a time and a dark and stormy night. Reward for sentences to eliminate these cliches. And so, thanks to Grammarly, the young girl learned that cliches like once upon a time are to be avoided like the plague. Download Grammarly today to... Wait. Are cliches really so bad? Because although the phrase once upon a time may be an overused way to start a story, it can also add a clever spin and a reference to a classic clause universally recognized as the opening of a great adventure. So, once upon a time, let us embark on our great adventure. We'll be looking at cliches and whether or not they really are so bad. Yet before we can learn about the cliche, we must first learn about the stereotype plate. And no, I'm not serving you society's prejudices on a silver platter. Rather, I'm talking about the 18th century printing plate, cast from a papier-mâché mold and used to make copies of newspapers and other text. The metal plate clicked when struck by the mold, and the term cliché was coined from the French clicher, which means to click. The word's meaning began to shift into the modern definition in the late 1800s. While stereotyping plates clicked to print copies of the same text over and over, clichés started to become words used over and over. The official definition of a cliché, according to Merriam-Webster, is a trite phrase or expression. And indeed, that's how we tend to view them today. Not as a noise made by a metal plate, but stale, unoriginal, useless. Yet before they made modern eyes roll, each cliché was probably considered brilliant when first coined. In fact, many common clichés were actually derived from a literal meaning. Take the phrases read between the lines and in a nutshell. Read between the lines actually originates from a technique of literally writing hidden messages, either in a secret code or invisible ink, in between the lines of a message. And the phrase in a nutshell was used by Roman writer and philosopher Pliny the Elder to describe a copy of Homer's Iliad, written so tiny it could literally fit inside a nutshell. So the next time you want to quickly summarize a situation for your friends, just print it out in size 1 font and stick it between 2 halves of a walnut shell. Or if you really had a lot to say, just use the coco de mer, a giant nut that can reach about 1 foot long. But in all seriousness, how does a cliché stand the test of time? According to NPR, there's a reason a cliché has become a cliché. Language is constantly renewing itself. If these truths can stick with us, they're there for a reason. We are inclined towards clichés because they are relatable, universal metaphors that resonate with everyone. After all, something can't be overused until it's used, and something's only used because people like it. This begs the question, is the stigma surrounding clichés just? Because, let's face it, one thing that has been hammered into our brains is not to use clichés. Ever. A quick Google search tells you everything. Clichés are unoriginal, lazy, bland, repetitive, boring, overused, uncreative, contemptible, unimaginative, useless. Yet, maybe they're not exactly the bane of a writer's existence. See what I did there? With a cliché, I instantly signaled that clichés aren't necessarily our most dreaded enemy, but with a phrase that was easily recognizable and quickly drew your attention. Clichés are easy to use and descriptive as well. Phrases like diamond in the rough or elephant in the room are actually vibrant metaphors. It's just that we've heard them so often that we've never thought about what they really mean. Fast Company notes that imagery, even cliched imagery, can be handy for imparting both meaning and feeling since it taps into sensory experiences. Clichés are just metaphors that are a cut above the crowd, the cream of the crop. See? I can't help but use them to explain things in a simple way, and you can't help but instantly understand what I mean. Yet, why are we able to recognize clichés so quickly and perhaps even prefer them to new phrases? The answer is simple. We crave familiarity. Our brains are wired to recognize and appreciate patterns, and we like to be able to predict them. This is proven even more so from a scientific standpoint. Researchers at Princeton University found that people were more excited when reading cliches, recognizing patterns in a sentence. They created a database with 180 phrases, 60 of which were cliches, such as grasping a new idea, 60 of which were the literal equivalent, such as learning a new idea, and 60 of which were concrete phrases, such as grasping a doorknob. By tracking split-second pupil dilation, the researchers were able to determine which phrases excited participants the most, as pupil dilation is a measurable metric for cognitive and emotional engagement. They ultimately found that our brains consistently pay more attention to conventional metaphors than similar alternatives. When participants reach the cliché in the sentence, their pupils remain dilated for a couple of seconds, suggesting a significant level of increased engagement. The researchers then recommended that teachers and parents use cliches more often to better communicate with children. They plan to continue their work by testing how neurodivergent and autistic children respond to cliches, and investigate how it could help the neurodiverse population learn language faster, which could be a breakthrough in functional communication training. So, yes, it's true. Our brains inherently prefer cliches, and in fact, they can help us navigate tough times and even improve our mental health. According to Psychology Today, there are serious times of contemplation and realization where a cliché makes perfect sense. Clichés simplify things. They make a complicated situation feel more manageable. They make sense. Positivity slogans such as love yourself or you can do it are used so often because they work. In just a few words, they simplify emotions to help encompass difficult concepts. Psychology Today continues by saying the original meaning of these phrases, the messages of hope, optimism, and the power of faith, still apply. These themes can create positive feelings to remember on dark days when you're at your lowest. The reason these sound like cliches is because they're also simply and undeniably true. And beyond the researchers and psychologists, a new force is emerging to propel the revival of cliches: AI. Specifically, ChatGPT. It's a growing problem for schools as students turn in work that may not be theirs. Yet it turns out that AI is a sucker for cliches. According to The Atlantic, ChatGPT could not help but litter its writing with them, and equivocated over whether something was definitely a cliche or not. I tried this out with a few of the most common cliches, and, well, I'll let the results speak for themselves. Here are two examples that particularly stood out to me. I asked ChatGPT to write a sentence starting with "Don't judge a book that is not a cliche." Its response: "Don't judge a book solely by its cover." My next prompt: write a sentence starting with "The apple doesn't fall" that avoids cliche. Here's what it gave me. "The apple doesn't fall from the tree." I guess after all these years, modern technology has finally proved that Newton was wrong. But in all seriousness, The Atlantic notes that ChatGPT only prefers cliches because they so commonly pop up in the input. Cliches appear over and over. There's no originality because ChatGPT is trained to regurgitate what we've written. And what have we written? Cliche after cliche. Yet, this might not be such a bad thing. By using the patterns of the past, ChatGPT can show us the patterns of the future. After all, patterns are the foundation for an AI algorithm's development. ChatGPT could in fact reveal the value of cliches once more. But until it can innovate new ways to use them, we'll be stuck groaning at its repetitive writing. Turns out, there still needs to be a bit of creativity to get the ball rolling. And even though old habits die hard, the criticism of cliches may be a cliche in and of itself. It's better late than never to re-examine the silver lining of cliches. But will the jury grant a favorable verdict on the cliche case? Only time will tell.